Hello Kennedy artists, this is Mrs. Eckendorf. Today I'm going to talk about threading a needle and different kinds of stitches you can use to complete your embroidery project. First we're going to thread our needle. Your needle has a hole at the top called the eye, and we need to get the thread through the eye of the needle. The easiest way to do this, if you look at your yarn, is it's actually a bunch of tiny pieces of yarn twisted together. I'm going to turn the yarn in the way that makes it get tighter and smaller. And once I have it twisted, I'm going to fold and pinch. I'm going to put this pinched part through the eye of the needle and then pull through. I want to leave a long enough tail right here that it is not going to slide off the needle, but not so long that I have doubled up two threads. So I'm going to pull it to about here. That should be good. So that my thread does not pull all the way through when I'm doing my stitching, I need to put a knot at the other end. I'm going to do a double knot. I'm going to start by making a loop in the thread and then putting the tail through the loop. When I pull, I have a single knot. To make a double knot, I make a loop and pull the tail through. That is a double knot. Alright, I'm going to show you a running stitch. So first, I'm going to thread my needle, and then I'm going to make sure I have my double knot at the other end. You'll need to look at your plan for where your running stitch starts. If you had it at the top edge going down the side, you might start maybe 3 or 4 holes in from the edge and pull your string through until the knot touches the back of your burlap. Now a running stitch can be different lengths. It's essentially a dotted line. I would try to keep each section of the dotted line maybe at most 5 or 6 dots long. So now I'm going and pulling all the yarn through. I'm going to go 5 or 6 spots on the back of the burlap, all the way through, 5 or 6 spots, oops, that's a little too much, on the front of the burlap, 5 or 6 spots on the back of the burlap. Your running stitch will look better if you try to make sure that most of your stitches are about the same length or size. You can see already it's making a dotted line. You will also have a dotted line on the back, but we're more worried about the one on the front. That's a running stitch. I'm going to show you a satin stitch, which is used to fill in a shape. I'm going to take a similar colored crayon to the color yarn I'm using and draw the shape I wish to fill in with the satin stitch. I already have my needle threaded and I have my double knot at the other end. I'm going to start on the back of my burlap at one corner of the shape, or one edge if it was a circle. And then I'm going to go all the way across to the other side of the rectangle. Now on the back I need to come back to the beginning edge and go through the next hole on the side of the rectangle. When you're doing a satin stitch, the lines will be next to each other. They will be parallel to each other. You could also have the lines going this way, parallel. I'm going to show you how to complete a cross stitch. For the beginning of cross stitch, you need to decide how many spaces your cross is going to go across. So I might decide I'm going to do 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means the outer corners of my cross will be 6 boxes apart. So I'm going to start by pulling through the first corner, and now I need to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here is the opposite corner diagonally going through. Oops. And now I'm going to go back to the top corner that is opposite the first one I did, and down to the bottom corner that is opposite. If you do the cross stitch correctly, you should end up with a shape that looks like an X. If I was doing a row of cross stitches, I would go down to the next corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is my opposite corner. Now I go back up to the top corner, opposite side, and then down to the bottom corner, opposite side. I already have 2 cross stitches completed. I'm going to talk about straight stitch. Straight stitch is any time you want to make a stitch that will only go in a direction once, so like a zigzag or a sunburst. I'm going to start, pull all the way through so my knot is touching the back, and if I was making a zigzag, I have to decide how far up I would like it to go. And then the next part of the zigzag needs to start in the next hole over. If I go to the same hole, I will be pulling out the stitch I just did. So I'm in the next hole over, and now down to create the next arm of the diagonal. Now I need to go to the next hole over so that I don't undo the stitch I just did. So up, next hole over, and down. If I want my diagonals to be very, very even, I need to count an exact number of spaces in between the bottom gaps and the top gaps. You can also use straight stitch to do something like a sunburst. I need to tie another double knot quickly. I start where I would like it. Oop, my double knot did not quite hold. I decide how far I would like that starburst line to go out, or sunburst line. And now I go back to the center, close to whatever is in the middle of the button, or maybe it's a different stitch like a cross stitch. I pull through, and now I go a different direction, about equal length. I come back to the center, and I go a different direction. I would have to keep going until I got all the way around the sun shape. There is one last thing we need to talk about, and that's when you finish a stitch or group of stitches. You cannot just leave the tails hanging loose because they might pull out. Sometimes it's easier to do this with the needle off, sometimes it's easier to do with the needle. I'm going to make a loop as close to the burlap as I possibly can, and then I'm going to stick the needle or the tail of the thread through the loop. When I pull, I'm pushing with my fingers down towards the burlap so that I have a knot touching the burlap. After the knot is there, I can cut the remaining tail. If I don't have my needle attached, like this example, I still make the loop. I come around and I put the loop or the tail through the loop. While I'm pulling, I make sure these fingers are going to push down so the knot ends up as close to the burlap as possible. Now that I have a knot, I can trim this tail. The back of your project is always going to look a little bit messier, not as cute as the front side, but you want to make sure you have a knot here to hold the beginning and the end of each stitch. You can see the front side is much neater with my straight stitches, satin stitches, cross stitches. I already took out my running stitch example.